What's up, guys and girls? This is Ray from the Generation Strong Talk Show. I'm joined by my trusted partner in crime, Jesse Akister, and we have the pleasure of a legend in the making visiting from LA.
Hi.
She's called Big Bench Abs.
That's not my name.
Also known as Abby, not Abigail, Abby. So Abby Louie hails from LA, California. Just smashed an American record and an unofficial world record. I'm going to hand the mic over to my trusted partner, Jesse. You take over.
All right.
So, Abby, tell us a little bit about your lifting career so far.
Yeah, so I started, my first meet was about 2 years ago, January 2017. And I just started powerlifting a little bit before that, so it's been about 2.5 years of training. Had a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of gains, and a lot of lessons learned. So I'm really happy to be in the sport, really happy that it's growing so much, and hope to do as well as I can in the future.
So, what made you start lifting and do that first meet?
Yeah, so I think, this started mostly when I was in undergraduate school in LA. I went to UCLA and I started lifting in, I think, my freshman year, but it's mostly like bodybuilding, you know, just like learning about how muscle groups work together. Like, you know, train your back and your buys together and your chest and your tries, not really anything powerlifting related. And then my second year of school, some of my friends taught me how to deadlift and how to squat and how to bench, and I picked it up really quickly, and I got strong really quickly, I learned, because I was consistent. And then I think a year later I found out that it was a thing, like powerlifting was a thing. I didn't know. So I've been training like kind of without a program or anything, just for a year. And then I think one of my brother's friends in Colorado said I should compete. And I was like, compete in what? And so that's when I started considering the possibility of like actually competing. Then I hired a coach, Joey Flex. He's the best coach ever. Love the guy. Shout out to you. And yeah, so we've been training together since, and that's how it all started.
So Abby, tell us about your career and what are your career highlights?
Yeah, so career highlights, I've competed in 6 meets altogether.
Whoa.
About to do my next one this March at the Arnold.
Oh, the Arnold.
Yeah, the Arnold in Ohio. So that's gonna be fun. This past year, I went to Worlds, IPF Worlds in Calgary. So that was really, really fun. I got 3rd overall for the 63 junior class, and then I also got a gold in squat.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then my second meet this year was USAPL Raw Nationals, and I got 2nd place in juniors and hit 2 American records, my 2nd, my 3rd attempt. And my 3rd attempt is also unofficially a world record. So that was really exciting.
What were the numbers?
I hit a 162 squat to break the American record of 160, I believe, and I hit 166 on my 3rd, which is also the unofficial.
And that was like an easy one. It looked like an 8.
No, I would say it was
so
like
easy.
9.5 maybe.
9.5. That looked really easy.
Yeah, thank you.
Really easy.
Thanks.
Well done. And what else? So deadlift, you said you had 2.
No, so deadlift, didn't break any records there, but fun fact about me, I've never missed a deadlift in competition. Knock on, there's no wood here, but knock on wood right here on this box.
Right there.
Never missed a deadlift in competition, so hopefully keep up that streak.
Awesome.
Forever.
I wish.
We got to pray to the deadlift gods for that.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me about the biggest lessons you've learned from lifting?
Good question.
Okay, biggest lesson. All right, I'm gonna think about this one.
Thank you. Nice to sleep.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna think about this one. It's a good question. Because there's so many things that I've learned from lifting. I'm trying to think of the biggest ones.
So, shall I tell you what mine is?
Yeah, that's good.
So for me, the biggest lesson I've learned from lifting is that with consistency, you can overcome the impossible things. It's just consistency and turning up every day. One day the things that are impossible will not be impossible anymore.
Yeah.
And I think for me it's like you learn that in lifting, you turn up and the numbers that you're never ever going to lift suddenly become the numbers you lift every day.
Yeah.
And then you realize, well, I can actually do that in my career and in other things in my life
Yeah.
if I just chip away a little bit every day.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's definitely something that I've experienced as well. I would say one thing that I've learned that I wish I knew when I started was not to overthink everything.
Yeah.
I think when you're starting out, you get really excited because you get strong quickly, and then you get to a certain point where like you get ups and downs all the time. Like one day is really great, awesome, and then the next day it's like total shit.
100%.
And then you get really down on yourself. So I think like learning about your body and like just learning how, you know, it's okay to have a good day and then followed by a really, really bad day.
Yeah.
And you kind of treat those 2 days as the same, right? You don't get super, super excited about a good day anymore, and you also don't get like super down on yourself if you get a bad day.
Yeah. Because we do have those, like part of the life journey, like in just generally in life, we'll have those, there's really positives and really negatives, and that's just part of the experience.
Yeah.
And it's the same in lifting.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing in that is I've noticed recently, sometimes I'll have successes, like I'll have like a PR in like weight I've lifted for reps or something.
Yeah.
And it's when you've been doing it a long time, it's like, oh well, and sometimes we forget to celebrate those small successes. And I think the longer we've been in the sport, it's important still to celebrate the wins.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, awesome stuff.
Yeah.
So, let's get into what is your best tips for squat?
Yeah, so I would say, best tips, I would start with the fact that squatting, usually people think of it as, you know, just your legs. But I think that it's a full body movement. You're using your back, your core, you know, everything. So you want to make sure that you're engaging everything right before you even like unrack the bar.
Exactly.
Right? So I would say what I do when I get under the bar is I make sure that my lats are pulled back and that everything's tight. I usually wear a belt. You don't have to wear a belt, but it kind of gives you that thing to press your abs against, to brace. So I make sure my back's tight, I kind of check that my abs are tight, and then I unrack the bar. And from that starting position, once you get that tight, most likely you're not going to lose it, or at least it's easier to consciously think about it if you've already have it right when you take it off the rack. If you try to set it up later on, right before you squat, like you walk out and you're loose, and then you try to squat and get tight, then it's a little bit harder, I found.
Well, I completely agree. When I'm coaching it, I'll say to people, like, if you're loose and there's 150 kilos on your back, you're never
Yeah.
going to get tension after you've picked up the bar.
Yeah.
You have to get the tension before, because there's just no way that you can get that tight after.
And I think for a lot of people, especially with low bar, you fail with your torso kind of coming forward and folding, which is mostly your core. So it's not your legs. Your legs are strong enough to push, 500 pounds. So really, really working on that tightness.
So I think that's a really great first thing. Like that tightness in the upper back and tightness in the core is always going to be more important than anything else. Like that's going to save people from hurting their backs. And like you said, for most people, that's why they end up failing, because they just lose tension and they collapse on themselves. After that, then what do you think about?
So something that also really helps me is thinking about pushing your hips back and getting into that squat position instead of just squatting kind of up and down and staying on your toes. So what you can think about is kind of keeping your weight on your heels. So as you lower yourself, if you feel like your weight's kind of going forward, then push your hips back a little bit more. And it'll look a lot, I mean, it'll look different for everyone just because of how we're all different.
Mobility's like.
Yeah, what your mobility is like, how long your limbs are, how long your torso is. So, but it's kind of just like finding that sweet spot of balancing your kind of torso kind of shifts, whether it's forward or more upright, with pushing your hips back and keeping your weight on your heels at all times.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about my balance, I'm thinking about sort of trying to stay like right here, just right at the front of my ankle. So it's more towards the back, but I want it like really central on the foot.
Yeah. And especially when you squat with low bar too, where the weight's a little bit farther back, so you really gotta figure out, you can't just kind of like be upright all the time like with a high bar squat.
Yeah.
So push your hips back.
So then we've got our back tight, we've braced, we're taking the hips back, and then what are you thinking about as you're getting into that depth position, and then when you come out of the hole?
So all of those things are kind of being combined, right? So as I'm going down, I'm thinking about everything's tight. I'm opening up my hips right at the bottom, pushing my knees out, and then at the same thing when I'm coming up, right? Because I think a big mistake, or it's not really a mistake, but it's kind of just partly our physiology and partly kind of just not learning how to do it. But you see a lot of knee caving when you come up like this. Puts a lot of pressure on your knees, and it's not the most efficient way to move your body. Right, so I would say keeping your hips open. Usually I like to stand not with my feet super forward. My feet are kind of pointed out. They're a little bit farther than shoulder width apart, so I can really get my hips open at the bottom and then pushing my knees out over my toes when I come up.
Yeah. And that foot stance is going to change depending on how your hip is built.
Yeah.
So my stance is more forward. If I go out, my hips won't move that way. So you'll see that width and angle of the foot is going to change person to person. So you really have to start to try and feel what's going to be right for you. And the main thing is that knee stays tracking over the toes. You don't want the knee outside of the toe or inside of the toe through the movement. It's like with the toes more forward and pushing the knees out. I see so many CrossFitters doing that because they've seen all the wrong ones.
Oh, like do this?
No, they've seen Kolkov do it, that's why. He's bow-legged already. And he squats like this.
And then they fuck up their knees.
Wait, feet forward and like this?
Yeah. Ooh. So they go here and then they hear the cue, push your knees out. And so they're not relating that to being still
Over
here
your
and
toes.
feeling tension.
Exactly.
Right.
They're going, I've got to shove my knees out.
Yeah.
And that's the difference with understanding the cue versus understanding what they're supposed to be feeling.
Okay, so this is the bad way.
So what we're looking for is that the knees track over the toes, but what happens is people think, I've got to shove my knees out. This is putting a load of pressure on the knee joint, which we don't want. Now, if you bring it back into where it's a normal position for you to squat, you can see like we've just got the knee tracking over the toe and she's not forcing it. So it's, even though when she talks about squatting, she's talking about feeling tension pushing out, it's not about actually displacing the joint.
Cool. Cool. Yeet.
Alrighty guys, hope you took something away from this video. A massive thank you to Abby and a massive thank you to Jessie for walking us through the squat tips today. Abby, hope you've had a great trip in Dubai.
It's great here.
And how many days are you here for more?
I think 5 more days.
Awesome,
we're
5 more
gonna do
days.
Christmas
so
here.
About the 27th, 28th? Nice, do Christmas here. Christmas here is great, right? And massive thank you to Jessie as well for her input and her expertise. Obviously a national level powerlifter, it's always great to have her talk about her favorite movement, the squat.
Plus, look at her traps.
Like, she is jacked. Awesome, guys. Keep following us. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and like. Stay strong and stay hangry, guys.